It happens all the time. I will be describing my collection of Lionel and Marx trains to a friend who's not in the hobby, and they will invariably say, "Well, those old trains must be worth a lot of money." Then I'll explain that some of my items are quite valuable, but just because a train is old, that does not necessarily make it valuable. Hello again, this is Mike with another episode of Toy Train Tips and Tricks. If the age of a train doesn't determine the value, then how do we answer the question, what is my train worth? Let's have a look. In basic economics, we learn that prices are determined by supply and demand. In the case of toy trains, the supply is usually limited by age and by the quantity of a specific item produced. Some items are very rare and others are quite common. So the first element that factors into value is the rarity of the item. As a general rule, items that are more rare will command higher prices than comparable items that are more common. For example, this Ford Autolite boxcar was produced by Lionel and was included in numerous starter sets as well as for separate sale over the course of 6 years in the early 1970s. Meanwhile, this Toys R Us boxcar is identical in size, shape, and design, but it was included only in one special set produced exclusively for Toys R Us in 1979. With fewer examples produced, the supply of the Toys R Us cars is far lower, and these cars therefore command a much higher price than the Ford Autolite cars, despite being newer. The next factor is condition. Obviously, the closer an item is to its condition when it left the manufacturer, the more valuable it is. For example, if you compare two classic cars, one looking like it did on the showroom floor in 1955, and the other that's been sitting in an open field for 40 years with a tree growing through the trunk, the better conditioned car is more valuable, regardless of its rarity. For toy trains, the factor also includes the condition of the box and any original accessories or paperwork that may have come with the item. To help standardize interpretations of condition, the Train Collectors Association has established a 10-point grading scale from C10, mint or like new, to C1, junk parts value only. Most of the items that you will find at a typical train show are in the C5 to C8 range. A few scratches and dings and perhaps a missing detail part or two, but functional. After rarity and condition, the third factor for collectability is desirability. This is somewhat of an X factor as it can vary from region to region and from time to time. One element of desirability is the road name or the decoration of the car. Some road names, such as Napierville Junction, a small bridge route connecting New England with Canada, will have more of a regional appeal than, say, Amtrak, which runs across the entire United States. Other items may be decorated for regional businesses, giving them extra value in, say, Pittsburgh, but not Peoria. Some items, such as Coca-Cola or Disney, are appealing to non-train collectors as well, and remember that collectible items are subject to forces of popular culture. For example, Disney and Bud Light items may be less popular and less valued now than they were just a few years ago, as these brands have fallen out of public favor. Other items may be quite rare, but for whatever reason, there's no desirability. For example, this number 8140 040 steamer is one of the rarest items made during the Lionel MPC era. It's very similar to several common versions, but this particular combination of color, wheel arrangement, road name, and tender type was only produced in a small number of uncatalogued sets for retailer service merchandise in 1875. Only about 100 to 150 or so were actually produced. So, is it valuable? No more so than its common cousins. While it's rare, it's not particularly desirable. For those who are strictly trained collectors, those three factors, rarity, condition, and desirability, are the only conditions to consider. But toy trains are different than most collectibles in that, in addition to being collected and put on display shelves, they can be operated as well, and the operating characteristics of a model may also influence its price. One example is the Lionel post-war turbine models, the 2020, 671, 681, and so on. Produced for about a decade, they are very common locomotives, regardless of the variation. But because they have a reputation as being good-running models, they are desirable to operators, and that makes them more valuable than they might otherwise be. Or compare Lionel's operating milk cars to their operating stock cars. The milk cars were produced over a longer time, but they operate almost flawlessly and are popular with operators. The stock cars, on the other hand, should be more valuable because they're a little more scarce, but the operating stockyard has a reputation of being finicky at best, so operators are less likely to purchase, reducing the desirability and price. So now you know the factors that influence price, but what about your particular items? How do you know their value? First, a little homework is in order. In order to know what values you're looking for, first, verify the manufacturer of your trains. Lionel, Marx, and American Flyer products will almost always carry some sort of identifying mark or logo. Other manufacturers, such as Atlas, Weaver, and Kusan, are often unmarked. Next, observe the type of item, such as steam locomotive, boxcar, caboose, etc., and then any numbers that you can see. For older Lionel items, the road number is usually the catalog number, but this is not always the case, and it is seldom true for items made since the mid-1990s. Look for a 4 or 5-digit number. Ignore any built dates for your items. These dates are often inaccurate. For example, many Lionel cabooses say built 247 when they were actually made in the mid-1950s. With your homework completed, use an internet search engine of your choice to verify your information. For example, if I enter Lionel NYC Gondola 6462, I instantly see a number of photos and articles about the 6462 gondola. On the other hand, if I enter Lionel Lehigh Valley Hopper 10,000, I see a variety of Lionel hoppers. Obviously, 10,000 is not the catalog number. But if I scroll down a little, I see Lionel Hopper Car Identification Guide. By matching my model's color, trucks, and body type on this table, I can find the actual production number, the actual catalog number of my car. Well, how about chassis system diesel number 3849? I quickly see lots of photos and a link to the original train set that it led, but I also see a link with the number 6-28827. Following this, I see that that is the actual catalog number, not 3849. Now, there are several options for determining a ballpark figure for your item. If you have a large collection or are very interested in train values, a good price guide is a must. For Lionel trains, a new pocket price guide like this one is published every year. Not only is this a great way to value your items, but it is also a good way to check the variety of items that Lionel made each year. And you don't necessarily have to buy a new guide each year. Every decade or so should be sufficient for most collectors. For American Flyer, guides are not published as frequently because there are fewer collectors, usually every 3 or 4 years or so. Marx guides are even less frequent, but they can be helpful in determining actual catalog numbers and production years for items. Perhaps an easier option is to check eBay or other online auction sites. Look for sold items so that you can see the actual final price of the item, not the early teaser price or the sometimes absurd listing prices that items never sell for. Here we see 2 recent sales of our Lionel GP38. Note that the one with the original box sold for $20 more. This gives us a ballpark idea of the value of our train. Well, what about the NYC gondola? Well, you can see that unless it has the original box and all of the original barrels, it's really not even worth $20, unless it's the rare pink one from the Lady Lionel set from the 1950s. Condition and rarity are the keys. Otherwise, this common car does not demand a high price. So, what are your trains worth? If cash is the issue, and that's certainly understandable these days, keep in mind that most items without a box and not in factory mint condition are not going to pay off your mortgage or put your kids through college. There are a few exceptions, but they are indeed few. I recommend keeping your trains if possible and using them for what they were intended for, memory making. If they have sentimental value for you and your family, they are priceless. For me, running an old train that I received for Christmas as a 5 or 6-year-old is like a time portal back to those magical, worry-free childhood days and the time I spent with my father building layouts and operating them. When I run an older train that I acquired, I wonder about its history. What memories did it hold for that original owner in 1950 or 1955? The sights, the smells, and the sounds of these old trains can take you back to those times. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, and if so, please like the video, hit that subscribe button, and tell your friends and neighbors. And keep the trains running, don't sell them. And we'll catch you next time on Toy Train Tips and Tricks.